Hey everyone, Zach here, and welcome to the 44th lesson of this RTS tutorial series. In this video, we'll start harvesting our resources. In the next lesson, we'll take care of what we do when we end harvesting, and then after that, bringing our resources to either the silo or the factory. Now, I know I said I'd release a special video today regarding the rotation of the sun and the date issue in the UI. I will still be addressing those issues, but I want to consider which approach I'm going to use for resolving those problems. So until I made that decision, I'm going to hold back on those videos. That said, fire up your editor and let's get started with harvesting our resources. Hey everyone, welcome back to the editor. So we're going to work on resource harvesting, which means we have a lot of things to get through. It's going to be a lot of things you've already done, so I'm not going to spend as much time explaining some of the information. Sorry about having the sun cycle open there. You don't need that. What we're going to start with is building an enum. And we're going to use this enum for a couple of things, but right now we're just using it to pass some information along. So go to your enums folder, right click, blueprints enumeration, and this will be resource type enum. Open it up, and we're just going to add 3 in here for now. We'll add more later on. First one we're just going to leave as blank. The next one will be our wood, and then finally our ore. Now, I said I'm not going to explain some of the things we've already done because we're repeating things now. We're putting things together that we've already used numerous times. I'm going to explain some of the little bit more complex things we'll be doing. So the next thing we need to do is we need just to update our resource master and then the children from that resource master. Remember that a parent in our BPs passes on information to its children, so the children inherit information. So if we go to our resources and open up our resource master, and in here, let's add in a resource type, and this will be a variable. It's of our new enum, so resource type I spelled resource there wrong, so I'm going to go fix that typo real quick before we go any further. So that's going to be resource type enum. There we go. Now I should be able to find my resource type. Ooh. So that should be resource type enum. And I'm just going to make this part of my resource legend information. There we go. Compile and save. The next step is then to go to each of our resources and update its type. So let's open up our ore, and we have our resource type up here. We're going to change that to ore, compile, and save. And let's do the same for our tree. And we'll just make that wood, compile, and save. All right, so now each of our resource types has a bit of information on the sort of resource it is. The next thing we need to do is we need to create a new unit type. And if you're doing a city builder, you might want to skip this step and just build everything in the unit master. But since I'm going for a more command and conquer style, I'm going to have different types of units. So we're going to right click this, unit master and do create child blueprint class. And this will be our RTS harvester unit. All right. So we're going to create some functions inside the unit master, some variables that will pass on to the harvester, and then in the harvester we'll actually add some functionality to those functions. We'll add some other variables as well. So let's open up our unit master. Let's get rid of the set targetable, everything else except for the event graph. So we have this arrive at building and set as passenger. We need something similar for resources, except for we're not going to have any functionality in here for it. We're just going to create the events. So custom event, and this will be harvest trigger. And the next one we're going to create, custom event again, will be trigger harvest end. So what's going to happen is in the child blueprints, we'll actually have events that come off of here. The reason we are doing that is we only want these events to trigger if it's a harvester unit. Yes, we could put the events in here and then say if unit type is, and we actually might do that later on. Alright, another thing we need to do in here is we're going to actually get our game time in here. So we're going to add a pin in to our event begin play, and we're also going to think about updating that later on. I'm just going to move this out of the way for now because I said I was going to update this in section 6, and I realized I didn't. And the reason for that is I'm contemplating, as I mentioned at the start of this video, alternative approaches to taking care of this. Because right now what we can do is we can add in another set of pins to take care of some of the issues. It's actually not this one we need to update. It's the one in the HUD we need to update. But we could add this into the HUD. But there's a better way to do it. And I just want to consider if I want to teach you guys that approach. So what we're going to do is what we've done before is a custom event. And this will be get game speed with a single input node, which will be game speed, which is a float. And then we'll drag off of here, promote to variable, set that to game speed. There we go. And now we'll drag off of this. We'll do bind event. Actually, hang on. Before we do bind event there, what we're going to do is we're going to get our references. We're going to get our game state reference, and we'll do bind event to game speed control. Plug that into the then 3. There we go. And off our event, we are going to do create event. And the event we're going to create is get game speed. Here we go. And we then need to initialize our game speed. So I'm just going to highlight our game state ref and hit Control W, get game speed, which will return the initial game speed. So we don't need to update. Oops. So we don't need to update the clock once. We already have it at the start without needing that update. Remember, if we skip this step, this will be a 0 until we change the game speed. All right, compile and save. Sorry about that. I didn't mind change blueprints. Compile and save. Now we're going to create one more function, and it's something we've done previously. So let's just go create a function, and it'll be get targeted or target resource. And it will have one input, which will be target resource, and that will be of our resource master. So RTS resource master, drag off of there, promote to variable, and this will be our target resource. And then we want a return node as well. There we go. And let's just categorize this as resource related. Let me try that again. Resource, capital R, related. And then our target resource will go into a folder called resource related. And let's move our game speed into game settings. There we go. Compile, save. And that takes care of what we need to do in here. Now, before we get into our new unit, let's pass the information of the type of resource we're targeting to our unit and move our unit to it. So to do that, let's go to our player controller, open that up, and let's go to our move to resources. And we're going to repeat what we have before. We're going to take our selected unit. We're just going to do a Control W on selected unit, and we'll do get target resource. We're going to plug that into there. Let's just make this comment a bit bigger so we have the room to play with. There we go. And we already have our resource target. We're just going to plug that into there. So now we're passing that information into the unit. And next, we just want to move to that target. There we go. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our resource master. In fact, I'm going to close out everything we don't need now. We don't need our resource enum. We don't need the individual resources. We might need our unit master still. We're not going to need the player controller, but I'm going to leave that open. But we do need our resource master. We're going to go to our viewport in our resource master, and we're going to add in our collision box like we did before. So highlight the resource mesh, and then do box collision. And you know, so it just randomly rotated, because remember, it's rotating on construction. We're going to set our scale to 1.25, 1.25, 1.25. Could have just hit that and typed in 1.25. Compile. Go to your construction script. And in here we have all the steps of our construction. We are going to add one more in now at the very end. We are going to get our... I'm going to actually rename this real quick as our resource entry. We're going to take our resource entry. We are going to do set box extent. And we're going to plug that into there. Okay, so now the size we want to set it to is related to our resource mesh. So we're going to have our resource mesh, and we're going to get local bounds, and we're going to take the max of that local bounds, and we're just going to plug that into our box extent. Compile and save. So now we have a box around our resource. So with our resource entry highlighted, scroll down on the right hand side and do on component begin overlap. There we go. And we have 2 layers of protection we're going to put into this. So we only want this to work if it is a harvester unit. So the first layer, if we go back to our unit master, and close that for a second, is if we look at the functions here, nothing happens if it's a regular unit where there's nothing at the end of these. So if it's a unit master, our only other unit versus our harvester, nothing can happen. The second layer of protection will be in our resource master BP. And what we'll do here is we will do on our other actor a cast to. And we want to cast to our RTS harvester unit. If it isn't I spelled harvester wrong. I'm spelling everything wrong today. Let me go fix that real quick as well. F2 RTS harvester unit. Control S, save. Go back to our resource master. Gonna just delete that and pull that back out. RTS harvester. Did I spell it wrong a second time? No, I did not. Unless I'm just seeing things. I didn't spell it wrong the first time either. I might just be seeing things. I am just seeing things. Okay. So from our as RTS harvester unit, what we want to do is we want to harvest trigger. Okay. So let's just pause here and test this by adding one more thing in. Let's go to our harvester unit now. Go to our event graph. And this is where things get a bit confusing. You'll notice I said we inherit stuff, but we can't see those functions we've created. Well, what we're going to do is we're actually going to call them up. And we're going to go to those functions here, and we're going to select override. We're just going to type in harvest trigger. There we go. And we're going to do one for harvest again. It'll be harvest end this time. So we have harvest end. What we're going to do just on harvest trigger is print string. We're going to have it say hello for now. So let's just move our unit. Ooh, let's actually put a unit into the map that can do this. So let's put our harvester unit in the map. And let's also make sure that it has the correct information. So we need to make sure that it knows that it's not being spawned in, but placed. Reset that. Just gonna make sure we actually have that set in our construction script. There we go. Is spawned in. Oh, we need to make that expose on spawn. So go back to your unit master. We want to expose on spawn and make this editable. Oh my god, I can't say that word still. So we can edit it. There we go. And let's go back to our map now. And let's just search for spawn. And this is not spawned in. So we're going to have a different set of details going into it. Hit play. There's our unit. Let's select it. Let's actually see if we can get a profile. So the profile still works. Everything still looks right. You might notice the birthdays might be wrong on yours. Send it there, and it says hello, so it's working. Send it to the next one, it says hello. Send it over to the rock, and it says hello. Okay, so we have it working. Actually, now let's test it in comparison to a regular unit. So that's a unit master I just spawned in. Let's send it over there to that particular resource, and you notice that nothing happens. It walks to it, it has the move to, but we don't get the hello. So we have that 2 layers of protection in there now, where it has to be the right type of unit going there for the event to trigger. It will only trigger in units that have something at the end of event harvest, at the end of the event harvest trigger. So we have that print string there. What we're going to do is we're going to delete this print string now, and we're actually going to start our harvest. And we're going to do this by doing set timer by function name. All right, and our function name is going to be, and we're going to copy and paste this in a second, start harvesting. So select all, copy that, and what we're going to do is we're going to loop this every 0.01 seconds, so 0.01 looping. All right, now we need a new function, which will be start harvesting, and create a new function, paste in the name, start harvesting. All right, so we now need to get information from our parent, and we can just right click and get that information. So we need to get the target resource. So get target resource as the variable. We need from this resource to know what type it is. So we're going to get resource type. And we are going to also in here create a new variable that will be our targeted resource type. And this will be an enum. So it will be the same thing as we had earlier, which will be our resource type enum. We're going to drag that in as a setter. And we're going to use this getter here to set that setter. So we're setting the targeted resource type to the type of resource we're pulling from. And we're going to use this for stuff later on. For now, this is just an extra step that we're putting in. So we're going to call, of thinking about this from an object-oriented point of view, a function we've set in our function library. We're going to get set game time. And I skipped one step. I left the unit master open for a reason. Let's go back into our unit master. Let's go up to, oh, we don't have it. So let's just make sure I don't have it. Okay, yeah. We need to get our event tick. So we'll do event tick. Actually, you know what? We're not going to do this in the unit master. I lied. Undo that. Just control save everything and get rid of that. Let's go back to our event graph on our harvester. On our harvester, off our event tick, off the delta seconds, promote to variable, and we'll have delta time there. Okay. Now return to your start harvesting. Plug your delta time into your delta time on the set game time. Right click and type in game speed, and we have that from our unit master. We're just going to pass that into there. There we go. And the next bit is going to be our harvesting time. So back drag off of that, promote to variable, and this will be time harvesting. Let's just line those up so it's a bit neater. There we go. And we're going to set our time harvesting off game time. So this will continuously update. Now, typically, we've always multiplied this by 60 to turn it into an hour. So I want every hour 1 unit of our resource to be harvested. So go to our resource master for a second, go to our construction script. Remember, we have our unit size set in current resources. So if our current resources say 20, I want it to take 20 hours for it to harvest every resource. The easiest way to do this is, well, first we do need to convert this into an hour. So we're going to multiply this by float. So float multiply by float and do 60. Only problem with that is, this is now going to turn this into a massive number. So it would take about 20 seconds to harvest it. What we need to do is reduce this number by a factor of 100. So we're going to divide it, float by float, by 100. So it turns it from, so it basically makes it 1 unit an hour can be harvested. We'll then create a new variable called harvested. And we'll set that at this point. So just plug the set into the set there. So now we're harvesting stuff. But we can only carry so much. And we're going to set an inventory max here. So create a new variable, and this will be max inventory. This is how much our character can carry. This will be a float. And we want to know, we want to get our max inventory, and we want to know, have we harvested more than our max inventory? So let's get our harvested as well. So what we're going to do is our max inventory less than or equal to our harvested? And just plug that into there. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to do a simple branch like we usually do when we have that sort of equation. So branch. And plug that into there. If our max inventory is less than what we've harvested or equal to, we want the timer to stop. So let's go back to our event graph. Let's just copy this. So Control C, go back to start harvesting and paste that in with Control V. And off the true, just plug that in, change the time to 0 and turn looping off. There we go. It will stop harvesting. The next thing we wanted to do is we wanted to trigger the end harvest. So trigger harvest end. There we go. And let's make sure this works. Go to our event graph, and down here we'll do a print string. And we'll just have it say, I'm done. What this will really do in the end is the next video. We have a lot of little things we have to include for that, such as getting our target buildings, sending the information, sending the unit to that building, updating what buildings it can go to, finding the closest. It's a lot of little steps we've already done. So let's just test this out. Let's grab our unit, send it here, and I'm just going to move this off screen for a second. Ooh, why are we already done? All right. Looks like we have a little bit of a problem. Oh, we skipped one very important step. Go back to your max inventory. We forgot to set a value for our max inventory. So what we want to do for that is we want to set the value to say 5. All right, now let's test this out. Grab the unit, send him to there. You can see it started running, so I'm just gonna move this off screen. And our harvested is now at 10%. It's a little bit faster than an hour. That's just because our game time isn't perfectly set up in terms of this math here, but we can adjust that down the road as needed. That's part of the balancing that you do at the end. But this is getting the base feature working. I'm going to speed the clock up a tiny bit. And you know what actually we're going to do, because that's going to take ages to get to 5. We are going to, I'm just going to pause the video here and resume when I get to about 4.75. Okay, welcome back. I was a little bit early on that. And we're about to hit 5. There we go. We hit 5, and it said I was done. Sorry, I didn't show that to you on the screen. So, yep, we now have our basic harvesting working. We now have an inventory of what he's harvested at 5.059. We'll actually round that down when we deposit our resources. So, just going over what we did. We created a... we can't see it in this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go into here for a second. We're going to very quickly show you in the screen what I've done. You don't need to do what I'm doing right now. I'm just walking through the logic again. We hit play. Our resources now have meshes around them like our buildings do. We send our unit into it. And once it's in there, it triggers an event that only harvester units can do. If we send our regular unit in there, nothing will happen. Not that we can see it anymore because we don't have the print string there. And while it's in there, it's going to harvest by going through this entire process. Now, what it's doing is it's setting our type of our resource that we're harvesting. It's then taking our game time. It's calculating out how much time we spent harvesting, and then turning that roughly into 1 unit of a resource per hour. And then it checks, have we exceeded our max inventory of 5 units? So it takes roughly 5 game hours. If we have, or if we're equal to it, then we want to stop harvesting. Now there's one more thing I want to do before we end this video, which is go back to our our resource master. I want to highlight this box again, get rid of that. I want to do on component end overlap. I just want to add that in. And I'm just going to select this again, Control W it down here, as other actor, plug that into there. And if we pull our unit out, let me just show you why we're going to do this. Actually, I'm going to unpin that for a second. Let me just show you what happens. We're going to send our unit to a tree. It begins harvesting. Let's just make sure it is harvesting. There you go. You can see it's harvesting. And if we then send our unit away from the tree, you can still see it's harvesting. It's no longer in that collision box. So what we want it to do is we want it to set function this timer to nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an event in here. And this is just be for actually we'll create in our unit master and we'll call it in like we did earlier. So we'll create another custom event. The reason why we aren't using the harvest end here is if this is for when they complete their inventory and not being told to flee. So if the user tells them to leave early, this is the event. This is early harvest end. All right, let's go back into our harvester unit. Let's then go to override and type in early. Let's compile and save so we can see it. Sorry about that. You always have to compile and save or you won't be able to see the children. Early harvest end. Drag that in. We're going to duplicate this timer down here. And we're going to set it to 0 and not looping anymore. There we go. And if we hit play, what we'll do is we'll send a unit in. In fact, I'm just going to move this off map. We're going to open up our start harvest real quick. All right, I'm going to move my unit in. There we go. You can see it's harvesting. Let's get it up to about 1 unit. I'm going to speed up the game clock a little bit to do that. All right, it's at 0.5, and I'm scrolling way off the map. I know you can't see quite what's going on. All right, we are now over 1 unit of resources. I'm going to go back to our event graph. I'm going to move the unit away. All right, let's go back to our... You know what we forgot to do? Let's go back to our resource master. We didn't tell it to actually activate this event. Sorry about that. So plug that back in, and then we're going to off as RTS harvester unit, early harvest end. It'd be helpful if I did that step, wouldn't it? So once again, let's go back into our harvester unit. Let's move the unit into the tree. All right, we're harvesting. Speed the game clock up a tiny bit. All right, once that hits 1, I'm going to move it away. So it's about 1 now. There we go. Go back to our event graph, and let's move the unit. Go back to our harvesting. Why is it still harvesting? That actually shouldn't be happening. Oh, because the unit hasn't moved. Whoops. There we go. Now the unit's moved. So the second the unit moved, even though we hadn't hit the 5 yet, we still have some in there. Now we send the unit back. It started harvesting again, and it's increasing. And I'm just going to drag this onto screen now. Oh, we're done. So let's just reset that real quick. We hit 5 way too quickly. Drag our unit, send it here. As that goes, we'll increase the game clock a tiny bit. Let me just get the unit onto screen. All right, we're about to hit 1. Send the unit away. It stops harvesting, send them back in, and it starts harvesting at where it left off. There we go. We have set up our initial harvesting mechanic. We will then set up things in relation to bringing these materials to buildings. That said, if you've enjoyed this series, make sure to hit that like button down below. It helps get this series out there and helps increase awareness of it. It also lets me know I'm bringing you content you appreciate. I know I have to fix the birth date on the HUD still and the sun rotation. I meant to do that in the last section, but as I said, I'm considering how I want to address that problem if I want to show you guys a different solution to the one I initially planned. If you want to see any other content, let me know. I do plan on doing a special series on things such as splines for roads and walls, and I also plan on including something where when it becomes nighttime, that lights on buildings will turn on. So if you want to see anything special like that, let me know down in the comments below, or join me on the Discord channel and let me know there. All that said, I hope you've enjoyed this series, and make sure to hit that subscribe and notify icon so you know when the next video is out. And as always, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.